We're in Sumter, South Carolina, and I'm visiting with Nat Bradford at his family farm. Nat, we're here today to talk about the Bradford watermelon, and your family's been growing it forever, but Dr. David Shields at the University of South Carolina wrote a eulogy for this watermelon. And tell me how you read that and how y'all got together and what's happened since.
So I was doing some research on our watermelon, trying to find out some more about its past. I came across Dr. David Shields' website, American Heritage Vegetables, and in his section on watermelons, he lamented the passing of the Bradford watermelon. And well, we're still growing it. I shot him an email and we connected there, and that's where our story begins.
Why was the Bradford watermelon so popular?
So it was one of the first melons in the 1800s that was bred specifically for uniformity, for size and shape and those kinds of qualities. Flavor was a big one, and it just ended up being such a desirable melon that it grew in popularity, and it was planted all over the U.S.
All over the United States, but then all of a sudden it went out of favor. What
disappeared.
happened?
So late 1800s, a lot of focus was put on breeding for shippability, and our watermelon just doesn't have what it needs to ship. Shippability comes from the thickness of the skin. Ours is paper thin. You can scratch it off with your fingernail. We have a thick rind, which is great, but strength comes from the thickness of the skin. The rhino-clad watermelons with thick skins ended up taking over the marketplace. Ours ended up in people's backyards.
Well, David certainly wanted you to grow these so that people could enjoy them again, but also within South Carolina and across the country, there was a movement towards value-added products, and I think that's going to fit in our story too.
Y'all hear that?
But first of all, we've got to grow some watermelons.
That's right.
So let's talk about how you do that.
So the way we do it, old school, we put them in hills, and we plant multiple seeds per hill. That allows us to thin them down to the strongest plants at each hill.
So you're selecting for quality, okay,
vigor for the first couple of vines that take off and run. Those are the ones we want to grow, and we thin out the rest.
Okay.
From those, we choose the top 2 or 3% of the melons that have the ideal shape and size and other quality standards that we're looking for, that are our standard Bradford melon. Save seeds off of those.
So you save those seeds.
That's right. Okay. That's how we preserve that breed line.
That genetic stock.
Very selective. And the rest of them, they're beautiful looking melons. Those are our fresh market melons. And then we have a whole bunch of melons that just for us, they don't look as good as we want to have
might
them
have
look
a little
for,
scratch or something
or a little
like that.
misshapen or something. They need to have something done with them too, and that's great for going into products.
Nat, a couple of weeks ago, we saw you and some of the kids hauling these watermelons in. Mm-hmm. Some of them are going to fresh market, as you said, but then others were going to the beginning of this value-added line, and that's the Culinary Institute. Tell me what it is and where it is.
Culinary Institute of the Carolinas in Greenville is associated with Greenville Tech campus, where we'll take our melons up there, we'll peel them, we'll chop them up, we'll separate the pulp from the seeds, and we can start breaking these melons down and make them into different products.
So the rind is used there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't discard the rind, you just peel the skin off, and then you take the pulp and push it down, get the seeds out, and collect the juice.
Mm-hmm. So the juice, we boil that down after it's been strained and separated. It's good, clean, filtered juice. Boil that down into watermelon molasses, which is an old foodway that's not been around since about 1880. It was tied to our watermelon, and so the chance to bring back some of these old other foods is really exciting. We make a dark molasses, which is very complex. It's very caramelized, very earthy, and then we make a red watermelon molasses, which is fruity. It captures the essence of the watermelon. It's really concentrated. A few drops is all you need.
So these aren't things that you pour on your pancakes. These are things that chefs use to add unusual flavors and depth to creations.
That's right. Usually these are on the surface, so it's the first thing that hits your palate. It's usually not blended into a food.
But then that watermelon rind, that good thick rind, how are we going to use it?
Well, what we don't eat fresh, because it's as good as a cucumber, a squeeze of lime juice and sea salt, we like it like that. But the rest of it, we chop into small pieces, and we make watermelon rind pickle out of it.
Now that's not done in Greenville, you're going to transport it.
That's right.
So you collect it in Greenville, and where is it going now?
Yep, we process it in Greenville at the Culinary Institute of the Carolinas, and we take it about 30 miles north into Tuxedo, North Carolina, Green River Picklers. And there it's 2 folks there that hand pack our jars. It's all done by hand, no machines, and they have a great operation there.
And one of the things you said is that they have a process where they don't have to cook it and make it mushy. How did they've got a way to keep it very crisp?
So that's unique to our watermelon. Our rind is already tender and crisp. We don't want to boil it because it'll get mushy. And so they're able to work with our process by not boiling the rind. Meets USDA standards, which we have to get it up to a certain temperature, but we don't want to cook it. We add the hot brine to it, and then the lids are sealed and it's good to go.
And my family loves that on top of pimento cheese, on top of a Benny seed wafer.
It's fantastic.
Nat, we made another visit to the field, and the family once again was involved. Thank goodness for all those children.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all were actually processing on site there.
That's right.
So tell me what that was all about.
So we were working just under an open shed where we had a procession with our watermelons. We would wash them, and then we'd start breaking them down, extracting the pulp. The pulp in this case was going to go into the brewing and the distilling industry. And so it's not as heavily a process as making molasses. We just need to get the seeds out, separate the rind, and stay in the good red, because the red is where all the sweet sugar and flavor is that's going to make great brandy and great beer.
And so who's your partner, and were they were there that day? Talk to us about collecting that juice and what they did, and then where it went.
So 620 Distillery, that's where our watermelon brandy is made. It's another historic beverage to South Carolina. It hasn't been around since about 1860s. And they brought their truck down. They brought a big old, I think it was maybe a 500-gallon tote, and we just took our pulp and poured it straight into that big old tote. He added his special yeast, things that his craft is, and we were actually getting that stuff to work right there out of the fields.
In addition to the 620 Distillery, I think there's a brewer that's involved sometimes in coming and collecting juice as well.
That's right. So we have a few different breweries. One of them that we work with is Carolina Bauernhaus Ales out of Anderson, South Carolina, and they take our beer from being a sweet, summer treat, and they convert it into a sour beer, which is fantastic.
What an odd thing to do with a good sweet watermelon, but I bet it tastes good.
This is the Sour Patch Kids generation. They love tart beers.
Now, many South Carolina restaurants like to feature South Carolina farmers and special things that they grow. I believe that you actually put these watermelons in the truck and carry them around.
That's right. So the chefs contact us well in advance of our harvest, and we just have a running list of the chefs and the restaurants and how many watermelons they want. When they're ripe, we give them a call and we say we're bringing them on.
And we were fortunate enough, we got to go to Motor Supply in Columbia, and they were really having a field day with Bradford watermelons.
Yeah, we love to see him at the local restaurants. Wes Fulmer is a fantastic chef, and he's done wonderful things with our watermelon there.
Nat, South Carolinians love history, but when history comes alive, it's even more exciting. And if people want to know more about the Bradford watermelon story and you, what's the best way to find out?
They can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We make posts on those two. BradfordWatermelons.com is our website. If they have any trouble, just Google Bradford Watermelons and they'll find us.
Well, thank you so much for all the time that you've spent sharing this wonderful story with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us.